Hello, and welcome to our first professional development workshop in the Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain series. This first workshop is designed to build awareness and knowledge on what culturally responsive teaching is and what it is not. As we begin to explore culturally responsive teaching and the power it has to close achievement gaps, we need to first understand how these achievement gaps are being perpetuated in our nation's schools. You see, gaps in student outcomes are not so much about achievement as they are about opportunity. Diverse students are often not given an opportunity for higher order skills development that will give them the gift of independence. Instead, schools often limit diverse students' ability to build cognitive routines by focusing on skills low on Bloom's taxonomy, thus creating an epidemic of dependent learners. The only way we can change this is to put the I back in equity. We need to create spaces that will stimulate the brain and give children the opportunity to inquire and become independent learners. Culturally responsive teaching is a holistic approach based on an academic mindset. While multicultural education and social justice education are important parts of culturally responsive pedagogy, they are not enough to accelerate learning. Culturally responsive teaching is about building dendrites and the learning capacity of the individual. It is rooted in cognitive science and learning theory.
So here's a thought. Vygotsky talks about this idea that children grow into the intellectual life around them. So our task is, no matter who the children are, rich, poor, black, brown, white, regardless of what the mother tongue is, we have to create environments that are stimulating to children, that allow them to use play as they're learning, because that's what the brain wants to do. How do we set that up? How do we create that environment? Every child should be an investigator versus just sitting down, being quiet, being compliant. How do we actually create community in the classroom where students are actually able to be curious and experiment and make things and break things if that's what happens? Because we learn from all of our experiences. But here's the thing I think is really important to remember. Because only the learner learns, the learner has to believe he or she can. The work out of the University of Chicago really talks about the idea of what does it mean to have academic mindset? And that the student has to believe he is capable of doing that. Creating that intellectual environment is really what's at the core of culturally responsive teaching. Not some multicultural kumbaya, let's have, the festival around bread from every country, right? We've all been there. And this rotates through what the child is saying to himself. I belong to this academic community. So that you create a community of learners where that child sees himself as part of that inquiry, trying new things, making things, breaking things, and doing that in community. I can succeed at this, meaning I have a sense of competence. It's not about the right or the wrong answer, particularly with our youngest children. We really have to give them the opportunity to have their hands on things and to ask questions about how something goes or doesn't go. My ability and competence grow with my effort, and this work has value to me. So being able to make sure that we help students really understand that their effort is going to move them forward and that they see the value. This is the whole idea of culturally responsive.
Culturally responsive teaching is a mindset, and the Ready for Rigor framework attempts to organize the principles and tools necessary to put culturally responsive teaching into practice. Awareness is about becoming aware of the role you play in your own cultural lens. Learning partnerships is about building trust with students and forming social emotional connections for deeper learning. Information processing focuses on how to expand and strengthen students' intellectual capacity, and community building is about creating a supportive space that communicates belonging in ways that students recognize.
How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference.